The propaganda movie Zeitgeist, moving forward, has 13 million views.
Oil is the foundation of, and it is present throughout the edifice of human civilization. There are 10 calories of hydrocarbon energy, oil and natural gas, in every calorie of food you and I eat in the industrialized world. Fertilizers are made from natural gas. Pesticides are made from oil. You drive oil-powered machines to plant, plow, irrigate, harvest, transport, package. You wrap the food in plastic, that's oil. All plastic is oil. There are 7 gallons of oil in every tire. Oil is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. And it's only because of oil that there are 7 billion people, or almost 7 billion people on this planet right now.
The arrival of this cheap, easy energy, which is equivalent, by the way, to billions of slaves working around the clock, changed the world in such a radical way over the last century, and the population has gone up 10 times. But by 2050, oil supply is able to support less than half the present world's population in their present way of life. So the scale of adjustment to live differently is just enormous.
The world is now using 6 barrels of oil for every barrel it finds. 5 years ago, it was using 4 barrels of oil for every barrel it finds. A year from now, it's going to be using 8 barrels of oil for every barrel it finds.
What's disturbing to me is the lack of any real effort from governments worldwide or industry leaders worldwide to do something different. I mean, we have these sort of attempts to build more wind power and to maybe do something with tide. We've got attempts to make our cars a little bit more efficient. But there's nothing which really looks like a revolution coming along. These are all pretty minor. And that, I think, is pretty frightening.
And the governments who are driven by these economists who don't really appreciate what we're talking about are trying to stimulate consumerism to restore past prosperity in the hope that they can restore the past. They're printing yet more money lacking any collateral at all. So if the economy improves and recovers and growth, famous growth comes back, it'll only be short-lived because within a short period of time, counted in months rather than years, it'll hit the supply barrier again. There'll be another price shock and a deeper recession. So I think we go into a series of vicious circles.
So you have the economic growth going up, price spike, everything shuts down, that's where we are now. Then it starts to come up again. But what we have now is this area where there's no more ability to produce cheap energy. We're at the peak. We're on the downslope of oil production. No way you're going to get any more out of the ground any faster, which means that things shut down. The price of oil drops, which it did in early 2009, but then as you have an ersatz so-called recovery, the price of oil starts to come back. It's recently been hovering around $80 a barrel, and what we see is at $80 a barrel now, with the economic and financial collapse, people are having a hard time affording that.
World oil production right now is about 86 million barrels a day. Over 10 years, you're looking at roughly 40 million barrels a day having to be replaced. There's nothing around which can come even within 1% of meeting that sort of demand. If we don't do something pretty quickly, there's going to be a huge energy deficiency. I think the big mistake is in not recognizing a decade or so ago that an effort, a concerted effort, needed to be made to develop these sustainable forms of energy. I think that's something our grandchildren will look back on with total disbelief. You people knew that you were dealing with a finite commodity. How could you possibly have built your economy around something which was going to disappear?
Now they tell us, that the oil supplies are running out, and there's an energy crisis, and we're going to be paying through the nose forever. Well, we don't have to be paying these people. There's no reason for it. There's new enzyme processes out right now that they tell me that they can get as much as 1,800 gallons of ethanol per acre. Now, 1,800 gallons would heat your house, heat your hot water, run your car, and you'd have a few hundred gallons left over. And don't think for a second that your car can't run on alcohol, because right now, over half the cars in Brazil are running on alcohol made from sugarcane. And hemp is a superior plant to sugarcane because it has the highest cellulose content. It'll produce the most alcohol by weight.
Rudolf Diesel, who made the diesel engine to run on hemp fuel, was found swimming with the fishes. Wide use of Rudolf Diesel's engine would have made petroleum-based fuel obsolete. The idea was destroyed by marijuana prohibition after Rudolf Diesel's death. Hemp harvests up to 10 times more than corn ethanol, and Bill Gates invested millions into genetically modified corn. Strains of hemp with very low THC produce the least amount of seed and biomass per acre. It really wouldn't take very long at all to get the hemp for fuel started. The United States consumes about 7 billion barrels of oil every year. Half of the arable land in America is 235 million acres. If you take 235 million acres times 42, that's 9,870,000,000 barrels. Our planet is poisoned because of all the pollution, because of all the petroleum and nuclear, natural gas, coal. Biodiesel is 11% oxygen by weight and contains no sulfur. It produces 11% oxygen instead. The first diesel fuel was made from oil pressed from hemp seeds. It's non-toxic, it's a nitrogen fixer, grows well nearly everywhere, a renewable resource, makes food, fuel, paper, rope, medicine, cosmetics, plastic, housing, paints, and so much more. Anyone who doesn't think there's enough land in America to grow hemp for fuel needs to take a serious look at all the land that could be converted into arable land. There would be plenty of land left over to grow food crops. Hemp is a great resource that creates over 50,000 different products, that creates oxygen as it grows, and breathes in CO2. Way more than trees. America could be energy independent this year. Lack of oxygen kills brain cells. Our number one need is oxygen. We need to switch fuels. Alcohol and hemp seed oil still burn oxygen, but they create it as they grow. Gasoline does not. In the 1930s, hemp was cornered with racist propaganda to ensure against the competition of hemp fuel and safe, non-addictive products. The blind prejudice still remains. If we and the other animals want to survive, we have to see through this ignorance and correct the problem. Hemp seed is very nutritious. I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy products, and I don't eat fish. There's a lot of genetically modified food out there.
It's truly amazing the number of conditions that respond favorably to cannabis.
It heals in any circumstance with any condition. We're looking at an unexcelled wonder plant, herbal medicine that has no comparison.
Cannabis is found in every major materia medica that has ever been written. It was included in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1854 until 1941. The founder of modern medicine is a physician named Sir William Osler, who was prominent around the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. He wrote the first textbook of internal medicine, and in that textbook he said that cannabis was the most effective medication for the treatment of migraine headaches. The first modern research that was done on cannabis was done in 1949 that demonstrated its usefulness in treating epilepsy. I have a number of people who don't have epilepsy when they use cannabis regularly.
Cannabis is remarkably well suited to our anatomy and physiology, even in the event one smokes it.
Marijuana was widely used in the 19th century for the treatment of asthma. And in the 1970s, we found that marijuana has a bronchodilator effect. It's because of the THC in marijuana. What is the evidence that marijuana smoking habitual marijuana smoking can lead to lung cancer. With respect to the development of lung cancer, we found no evidence of any increased risk of lung cancer occurrence in association with marijuana smoking alone. The THC actually has an anti-tumoral effect. And these are studies that were done both in experimental animals and in cell culture systems, and for different kinds of cancer. For lung cancer, breast cancer, thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, gliomas, brain cancer, that the development and growth, or the growth actually of the tumor is suppressed by THC, and metastases are also suppressed.
There was a study done on AIDS patients by Dr. Donald Abrams of UCSF to specifically determine whether or not the use of cannabis had an adverse effect on AIDS patients. And rather than finding that it had an adverse effect, he found that it had a favorable effect and that it counteracted AIDS wasting syndrome. Cannabis is useful in relieving people's pain. People are able to decrease the amount of opiates that they're taking, and in some instances to stop taking opiates entirely for pain control.
Antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, smooth muscle relaxant. It's also an antispasmodic.
It's particularly effective in relieving pain from connective tissue disorders, from arthritis, from fibromyalgia, from systemic lupus, from reflex sympathetic dystrophy, a whole host of conditions that we don't really understand very well. People seem to get a good relief from cannabis.
From a medical viewpoint, cannabis has no overdose potential.
It's helpful in dealing with the anxiety of people that have Alzheimer's disease. It's helpful in dealing with the muscle spasms that are associated with Parkinson's disease.
Cannabis has an unexcelled record in terms of providing safe and effective sleep.
We did a little study of people with Crohn's disease and found that many of them were able to stop using steroids and stop using other medications that they had taken for their Crohn's, that they had less diarrhea, they had less abdominal pain. It was a true miracle for them.
Here you have a substance that makes you feel better, has no overdose potential, returns you to your cognitive level of functioning.
We've got 15,000 studies that have been done, both basic science and clinical studies, that have demonstrated over and over again the medicinal value